What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined with boots on the ground from day 3 of the 2024 Reese's Senior Bowl. My main man, Nick Martin, recapping day 3, final practice of the Senior Bowl as they head into the game on Saturday. Everything the Pittsburgh Steelers have been doing, everything the Pittsburgh Steelers will continue to do, who stood out, our biggest winners, our biggest losers, and Nick's biggest takeaways from day 3 down in Mobile, Alabama. You're rounding out a busy week down there. How you feeling? How was the week? How was Mobile?
Mobile's been great, man. It's such a nice city in terms of just like going downtown, just the little areas, the campus, everything. I would say it's a pretty nice place overall if you wanted to just live here in general. And
Yeah.
then they're gonna have the Mardi Gras celebrations, throughout the weekend. That's always a huge draw of Mobile. But Senior Bowl, been very glad to be down here. Just really enjoying it overall. It's been a great time.
I think it's hilarious that you learn once you're down there that if you bring up Mardi Gras and then say something along the lines of, "Oh, I didn't realize Mardi Gras was celebrated here too," everyone will immediately correct you and say, "No, no, no, no. It was founded here. Let's get the New Orleans. Let's get out of here with your nonsense. Mardi Gras is from Mobile, Alabama. I do love it down there. Wish I got down there this year. I'll get down there next year. Glad that you got to experience it. It is a great, experience it again. It is a great little town. Favorite spot that you have eaten it? Have you eaten at places? Did you get some barbecue?
I'll be real. Most of my time eating, I've been just I got like a place called Lost Pizza Company, and I got
Yeah.
their pizza and their wings, and that was pretty solid overall, I'd say. There's
Yeah.
also like a little wing place next to us. I think it's like Voodoo Wings. One of the people in the hotel, they got it and they recommended it to me. I was like, man, I think I'm just gonna get some pizza and wings together because I was so hungry last night.
Oh
I
yeah.
had I had barely eaten anything, so I was like, I need to get some food.
Yeah. For everybody who was on the live stream, we heard you talking about how you didn't eat the free food in the convention center, which is crazy because come on, we're
I
20
didn't
some years old. This is what we
I,
do is we eat free food.
I didn't see it in there. I swear it was not in there. They call it a media breakfast. I didn't smell food. I didn't see food. That's all I'm saying.
I didn't smell it. I didn't eat it. I understand that. All right. For everybody jumping on, make sure to drop all your questions in the chat. We'll be on for about a half hour or so. We'll get to as many, if not all of them, as we're going through the stream. Day 3, the Pittsburgh Steelers and really all of the teams down there wrap up their week of scouting. Most coaches will head back. Not many people actually stay for the game. That's available pretty much everywhere on TV. The big stuff is the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday practice. Day 3 down there, got to start with the Pittsburgh Steelers. What were they doing? What was Mike Tomlin doing at the Senior Bowl to round things out?
I mean, it was actually kind of crazy because it was a little hard to pinpoint him overall during like these practices, like this practice in particular. I'm not even sure he may have already gotten up and left. I wasn't quite certain, but from what he's been doing, he's been looking at basically every position, just trying to challenge guys. And if you're asking me based off all the meetings and stuff like that, they're looking at corners, they're looking at O-line, they're looking at receiver, they're looking at those most important positions that they need to address in the draft.
Nice. So a lot of O-linemen, a lot of corners, a lot of wide receiver. Wide receiver, I think would be the most. I don't know. I don't want to say it out in left field, but the one that I didn't anticipate the Steelers would be as heavily involved in as the other two. Good to know. Tomlin does typically dip, but actually last year, Tomlin was down there. Day 3, Andy Weidler showed up. Day 3, Art Rooney showed up at one point. He was walking around. I'm sure that they got plenty going on because they are in the midst of signing a new offensive coordinator in Arthur Smith. But good to know that that's where everybody's eyes were. Your biggest takeaway from day 3 down there?
Okay, so legitimately, if you're going literally big, it was the end of the American practice. This practice was ran like in such a way it was so frustrating to watch in the beginning. But then they started having the O-line and the D-line running one-on-ones, running fade routes, and you got O-linemen, finishing, finishing their routes and then, catching the ball. They're celebrating, they're throwing they're throwing the ball through the goalpost, or they're doing the gritty, and it's just a great it's just such a fun time just seeing those players have fun. Now, no one got injured obviously from that experience. That wouldn't have been
Thank
good.
God.
But it's funny because you watch the edge rushers, they're running their routes, and it's like, man, they could play freaking tight end the way they're moving. And
Dude,
then
some of those guys are fast.
yeah, and then some of those offensive linemen, you'd be surprised how nimble they are at the top of their routes. But Christian Jones can say without a doubt, worst route runner, worst hands. He does not really have a future as a wide receiver at any point in his career.
He's not a guy. He's not a reporting as eligible kind of guy. I understand that one.
Yeah.
I did see those clips. That's always a great time. I was very thankful that nobody was out there tearing ACLs. That would be the worst case scenario. I also saw a couple of guys that were just, 350, 375 running straight, and then the ball would come and there'd be no jump. They'd just be waiting for it to land in their hands, and I'm like, that's a lineman right there. That's a typical lineman. I'm all about that. That's a great time. Any performances on the field that really stood out to you?
So at O line, Christian Haynes, guard out of Connecticut, UConn. So
Word.
plays with a nasty demeanor. I've watched a bit of his tape before. He's a guy you can pull him, get him out in space. He moves well, but he also just has great anchor, hand placement. He's just really nasty. He challenged like some of the best defensive linemen here, Darius Robinson, Devondre Sweat. And he held up like against all of them in one-on-ones. I'd say Christian Haynes definitely had the best day 3 out of all the linemen.
Is that the one that got his helmet taken off at some point
Yeah,
today
yeah, he
and
did get
thrown?
his helmet taken off. Yes.
That's how you know you're winning. That's how you know as an offensive lineman that you are winning that battle. Is if some defensive lineman is so pissed off that he's throwing helmets. That's good. That's good to hear. I don't know. Yesterday it was Roman Wilson versus Mitchell. Any battles today that you saw that you went, oh, okay, that was a good one, or are things starting to calm down a little bit, waiting for Saturday?
I think it was calming down a little bit. You definitely saw like more wide receiver one-on-ones. It was kind of interesting watching like some of the taller corners like Kyrie Jackson go up against like Brendan Rice, because
Yeah.
they'd match up with each other like very much physically, and they both got their fair share of wins and losses. Mainly Brendan Rice running the cheat code that is the freaking whip route. I mean, what are you supposed to do as a corner in one-on-ones? Like,
Nothing.
yeah,
Nothing, especially in one-on-ones. There's nothing you could do a lot of those drills are designed this week, and you got to like acknowledge it at times. Like
yes.
this is not built for the defense to look good. This is built for the wide receivers to look good, which is tough in practice. You know what I mean? You watch it. You watch it every day in an NFL practice. You're sitting there, you're going, I know the defense is not this bad, but I also know George Pickens isn't catching 75 deep balls in a game because this isn't going to work as well as it does right now. Some of those stuff is just designed for the offense to win. That's a good one. I'm glad you were telling me earlier about the dude who showed up who wasn't supposed to be there.
Oh, it was I think it was Travis Glover out of
Travis
Georgia
Glover.
State. Yeah, it was really interesting with him because I'm sitting next to quite a few, smart guys like Devin Jackson, Alex Katzen, and they got their binoculars on. They're like, "Who the heck is that?" Like, Glover? I don't even see him on the roster. And then
Guy
they
just
look
showed
him
up.
up. Yeah, they found him from Georgia State, and he got called up, I guess, from the Hula Bowl, and he hadn't really met with Pittsburgh. I asked him about that. I interviewed him a little bit. Tomlin didn't really talk to him. He wasn't down there very long, but
He didn't even know he was there.
I bet he was in the same boat as most of us, honestly.
Yeah,
But
he's got probably just like, that guy snuck on the field. Is that a fan?
No,
Tomlin's got experience with that. You know what I mean? He's got to be cautious.
yeah, it was interesting with Glover because he showed up. He actually was playing fairly well. Like it was interesting because like I haven't watched Georgia State. I was only really getting some information from others, but from what they told me, they run a lot of wide splits and they do a lot of shuffling. They don't do any kick sets. and he was out there doing kick sets, and he looked pretty solid overall. He's like raw with his feet, but there's something to work with there, and I thought that was pretty encouraging overall, just to see from a guy who barely even got here. Like
Yeah.
it was really interesting. It was really cool.
Yeah. I'm always the guy. I'm always pushing for guys who show up out of nowhere. And if you go to Southern Georgia State or something, whatever it is, I'm 100% in on those guys. I hope he ends up a 7th-round pick and he just turns into something ridiculous. Always rooting for those guys. All right, want to dive into the biggest winners and losers of the week, what the Pittsburgh Steelers did, so on and so forth. But want to answer a couple questions here before we keep going. How do you feel about Kenny Pickett being the starter? General Pittsburgh question here. You a fan? You not a fan? He is technically QB1 as of right now.
As far as I'm concerned, if he keeps continuing to pass up open backside reads and running himself into sacks outside the back door when there isn't pressure there, no, I'm not very encouraged about that. It's frustrating as an analyst to watch. It's frustrating to just watch the film and see those things and just see him not trust what he's seeing, but also just have the clock in his head just going 1, 2, 3, 4, like, and just and then like once he gets to that point, he's like, all right, I gotta dip, I gotta leave. And it was a problem for him in college. It continues to be a problem for him in the NFL until that fixes itself. I'm gonna have my doubts about his ability as a starter right now.
How much do you think Matt Canada hurt that?
It definitely didn't help. I would say that much. I mean, Canada was not very creative with many of his route concepts. I'd say it was interesting because people say you look at Kenny Pickett's like play action splits under Canada, they were not good. You go to his college days, that was where he made his bread and butter. And the reason that was because they just don't influence the middle of the field. For some reason, when they do play action, they do it towards the sideline. And they do it for these short gainers that have no reward to it at all. There's no point to setting those things up. And that was my frustration with Canada. And I do think that hurt Kenny, but I don't think he was the only problem.
Yeah. One of the many things that were frustrated with Matt Canada. I read a thing today or saw a podcast today on Roto World that they tried to say that the Arthur Smith hire was quote unquote, uniformly worse than Matt Canada. And I said, that is the wildest take I have ever heard in my life. And then they double dipped on it. They like kept going. His co-host, I don't know their names, but his co-host tried to like be like, okay, let's calm it down. And this guy was like, nope, this is it. And I was like, you didn't watch Matt Canada. You didn't watch a single play of a Matt Canada offense. Who you got won the Super Bowl this year? I am a Taylor Swift guy. I don't listen to Taylor Swift, but I think Taylor Swift's pretty cool. I respect how big, like I live in Pittsburgh. When she came to Pittsburgh, I watched the city shut down for this woman. Like the entire city was shut down. It was just Taylor Swift fans everywhere. I respect that. You know, I hope one day I'm walking around and I got a whole city shut down because I'm good at something, you know? So shout out Taylor Swift. I do have the 49ers winning as well, though.
Yeah, I'm not really a big Taylor Swift fan. I don't really care too much about the whole thing. I'm not really a one opinion or the other. I just don't really care at this point. I'm more so, I scouted Patrick Mahomes out of college. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks. I want to see him go down as the GOAT because I hate Tom Brady. I hate him so freaking much for what he did to Pittsburgh.
You go. Oh, okay. See, I think I grew up, and I know this is way off topic, but I think I grew up with like a household, and I didn't grow up in a Steelers household. I was a Steelers fan, but the rest of my family was not. And yeah, and that like kind of like they embedded in me. It was like you have to respect Tom Brady. And I was like, at the beginning, I hated Tom Brady. At the end of it, I was like, this guy's the GOAT. Now I'm alone, surrounded by nothing but Steelers fans, watching Patrick Mahomes be this next guy. And all I'm thinking constantly is, man, this is annoying. This is super. I'm done with this. I would like somebody new. This would be fantastic. At the same time, I love Andy Reid, so it's a tough one. We'll see. I'm just looking for a good game. Give me a good Super Bowl like it was last year and let it go my way so that I win a couple of bets because last year I put all my money on the Eagles and it didn't work out that well. All All right, let's take it back to the Senior Bowl here. Let's go bigger picture, okay? Pittsburgh Steelers as a whole, your biggest takeaway from them, just biggest, okay, this is the Pittsburgh Steelers. If I was leaving right now, if I was doing a mock draft tomorrow, this is the position I believe the Pittsburgh Steelers have kind of solidified themselves with, or player that the Pittsburgh Steelers have kind of solidified themselves with.
I would say that they're going to look at like the offensive lineman as far as I'm concerned coming out of this week. I could see Quinion Mitchell from Toledo as a potential option at 20.
Yeah.
He's definitely a guy who has that potential. As far as I'm concerned, though, I've had him in my round 1 mock since the beginning. Jackson Powers Johnson. It makes so much sense on paper. Literally, it's just a matter of, is he going to be there? There's teams with needs at center that are picking in front of them.
Yeah.
They might not be there. They might have to wait for like a Zach Frazier or a Cedric Von Prawn. And I like Zach Frazier. I think that he fits the wide zone scheme fit a lot more than like a Von Prawn might.
Yeah.
And I think they want to make sure they get a guy like that in the second round. It's also not a guarantee. So that's why I'm very much of the interest of getting Jackson Powers Johnson if he's there. Now, I mean, look at Talois Fuaga from Oregon State.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy, just tremendous feet, tremendous hands. He's got a great anchor. He is a tackle, I think, can be somewhere in that top 10 to top 20 range as well. He could go in that spot. I could see him being a terrific fit for them. And then potentially, if you want to go all upside, you want the upside pick, and you like the fact that he's mainly learned right tackle, not left tackle. Draft Tyler Guyton, maybe. Try to develop his hands. Have him come along at number 20. It might be a little bit of a risk there overall, but
I could
see them
going.
going. Yeah, I could see them going in that type of direction. I could see them potentially looking at that type of swing. Quinion Mitchell, if you just wanted to go with one of the best corners in this class, makes so much sense. I would 100% support that. If you're going day 2 though, Kyrie Jackson from Oregon, size, speed, weight, length. He's just he was smothering people whenever he was healthy. He wasn't here. He was on the sideline day 2 because he was dealing with an injury. Day 1, he showed up, he balled. Day 3, showed up, balled. He's a guy. He's a guy that I'm very much interested in because his press technique is way further along than you'd expect for someone who's only a 1-year starter at Oregon. And then you look at all his potential, height, weight, length traits. All that fits with what Pittsburgh wants. You want to go like with a day 3 option? I interviewed Max Melton. I believe he said he visited with the Steelers twice, and he got some good talks with Tomlin, on the sideline. Rutgers kid. He's related to Bo Melton, and he's got, so he has good advice for him going through the draft process. Yeah. Really nice guy. I actually really enjoyed talking to him. He gives really thoughtful answers, but also like he's a guy who would play special teams in a pinch. He would want to play inside out. He's willing to do with whatever. Day 3, I thought was his best day. I thought he really figured out how receivers were moving, especially in one-on-ones. It almost felt like he was in their head at times. I thought he was just mirroring, reacting, closing extremely well. I'd keep him on your radar for a day 3 guy.
So Jackson Powers Johnson met with the Steelers twice, from what I have heard, yes. which is a positive thing. The Steelers, I don't think in their existence have ever drafted 2 Oregon guys in a draft. So to go back-to-back first, second round would be unbelievable. But if you're going to change the culture, you're going to start somewhere, and let's start with going to the West Coast maybe and drafting 2 Oregon guys. I mean, outside of Dennis Dixon, I can't even name one. So shout out. That would be one hell of a move. Bo Melton was my dude last year at the Senior Bowl, and I still think he's phenomenal. I still think he's a great contributor in the NFL, early in the NFL. So I'm a big fan of that kid. Would like to see his brother come or his cousin come. That would be nice. I'm all about another late corner. You know what I mean? Like Corey Trice to me has a lot of upside. And if you're going to match that with somebody, I don't know what Darius Rush is going to be. I don't even know what position he's going to play in the NFL. If you're going to match that with another, somewhat high potential guy who could come in here late, I'd be all about that. I like that the Steelers are doing their homework a little bit of everywhere. Let me ask big picture question again here. Your biggest winners, your biggest losers from this week, 3 days deep. They're heading into Saturday. The press box will be filled with Reese's candy, and so will the field. But the practices are what people care about. Who are your biggest winners, your biggest losers from 3 days at the Senior Bowl?
I'd say the biggest loser right now is probably Bo Nix. I don't think he had
Oof.
a very good 3 days. I think he really struggled with his ball placement because he wasn't settling his feet quick enough. He was skipping passes. He was getting way too check down heavy. There was just a lot of skittishness when it came to how he was playing. And that's a little frustrating to see because, he's a guy who plays with a low, he's had a low A dot throughout most of his career. You want to see him be able to get backside, trust what he's seeing, but he was just consistently, passing up the bigger spots. He wasn't trying to make those risky throws. He just kind of passed them up, took what he could, and it is what it is. But when you're also missing passes, it's not a great sign. I'd say Bo Nix really, I want to say he hurt himself, but I really don't know. The way quarterbacks are with the Senior Bowl, sometimes they get a lot of pub with how they play at the Senior Bowl in practices, and sometimes it doesn't end up mattering. But I'd say overall, he didn't help himself this week.
Yeah. You think he's still a first round pick? You think he was definitely a first round pick at the beginning of all this. Do you think he's still a first round pick?
I think with the way that the buzz was trending, everyone wanted him to take over this week. They wanted him to be that guy. I think there's going to be more questions about him now. There's going to be a lot more concern over a guy who's going to be 24 years old. This could potentially help JJ McCarthy, who could be the biggest winner
JJ
for not
McCarthy
even
might be the biggest winner. Yep.
Yeah, not just from not being here. Yeah, exactly. And put all that together, I really think Bo Nix he hurt himself, and he might end up putting himself more in the day 2 conversation as opposed to the day 1 conversation. Could a team take a chance? They could, but I don't think he helped himself at all this week.
All right, good to know. Biggest winner you got going on there besides JJ McCarthy, who wasn't part of the group?
Well, I'm not going to say Jackson Paris Johnson. That was too obvious. There's quite a few winners in this whole group. I'll give you 2 big ones. I'll give you Christian Haynes from UConn. Really thought he just played tremendous the whole week. He was just nasty. He challenged guys. He got guys mad. He got in their head, but he also took the challenge to the bigger guys like Devondre Sweat and Darius Robinson. He held up. He stood firm on everything. Gabe Hall from Baylor really put himself on the map. He's a guy who is like 6'5", 290. He's got a ridiculous wingspan. Could be like a Charles Omenihu type player who could play inside, outside. There's just a lot of length, speed, and power. It was interesting, too, when I listened to him speak. I was asking him about his pass rush plan. He actually had a pretty good understanding of how he sets people up. And when he showed up the first day, he was beating guys with finesse and swims. And the day 2, he was like, oh, okay, yeah, they're starting to catch on to that. So he started to hit him more with the power aspect of his game, and he was changing it up. And I think he's not raw, but I think he's getting the wheels in his head are very much turning on how his pass rush works.
Do you see the Pittsburgh Steelers approaching like a pretty high round defensive tackle?
I could see it
type guy.
I could, I think this is a potentially underrated need because Cam Hayward is getting older. Keanu Benton is like a really high rising talent for them, but Larry Ogunjobi under a big contract, you may want to look potentially at cheaper options. Gabe Hall, I think from what I saw, from what I remember of the interview, don't quote me on this, but he did meet with them. He may have met with them twice though, and he did get some talk with Tomlin and stuff like that on the sideline was encouraging. He really liked, just getting to speak with him. It's really big, just the amount of times that Tomlin has been involved with any of these guys down on the
Yeah.
field, because you just ask anyone and he's just all over those guys. And Hall, for me, I think he made the most impression because I hadn't really been able to watch his tape. I kind of watched a little bit of cut ups on him going into the week. I didn't really know what to think. I was just like, he's got that size, he's got that weight, he's got that explosiveness. I just want to see how he ends up doing. And, he ended up doing pretty fairly well this week. I'd say he made himself quite a bit of money, honestly.
Oh
If you
yeah,
want,
rising how high?
I'd say like into the solid day 2 conversation. Now, if you're asking like between defensive linemen and edge rushers who might have put themselves in day 1, it was probably Darius Robinson of
I
Missouri.
was gonna say he's the name that I've heard all week long.
Yeah, he's just been playing inside, outside. He's winning with power. He's beating guys on reach blocks. He's just up from the interior. He's just showing up in every facet. Wouldn't be shocked if this guy ends up being a day 1 pick, because
Okay.
there's just a lot of teams that want to get their hands on a guy like that, cultivate him. He's got that ridiculous length. Like, he controls the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
And despite not playing interior very much, he really showed, that potential ability to transition there. And I think that's really gotten teams to think about his future there.
Do you have a guy as Haynes, your dude for the Steelers? Do you have a guy for the Steelers that you were watching on the defensive line going, I can see them taking? I feel like last year was obviously Keanu Benton. Do you have a guy this year that you were looking at?
Defensive line's interesting because I don't necessarily know if like it would be there's a lot of guys they could potentially go with, like Gabe Hall, like for instance. But the guy, when I watch him, that just kind of screams Steeler in terms of how he wins is Dwayne Carter from Duke. He is more of like a bull in a china shop type guy. Like, he will try to beat you with power, speed to power. That is his bread and butter. He's not really all that polished with his hands, and I do think some injuries from his this year kind of affected him. He looked a little bit rough against Louisville. It was
Yeah.
nice to see him healthy this week. I still think he needs to work on his hands, but I could see them being interested in a guy like that. He could be like that 3-5 tech that they're looking for.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of. I think that's what they need. Do you want Keanu to move over? Do you want Keanu to stay where? My thought is Keanu moves over once Cam leaves. For right now, he's got to stay at nose tackle. How long can you stay at nose tackle before that becomes an issue and you turn into a Javon Hargrave?
I mean, personally, his best fit is 3 technique. It's just
Really?
They signed Larry Ogunjobi is the problem. So they're kind of stuck with that right
I was gonna
now.
say Keanu's best is really, even with
Yeah,
his body, with his build, I feel like he's a bigger dude.
he is a big dude, but what is really underrated about him is he's really nimble on his feet, and he
Yeah.
also is just a damn good pass rusher. He's good beating guys with quickness with his hands, but also he's been transitioning more off that power. And that's
Mhm.
something that was huge for him, because once he started to implement power into his game, guys didn't really always have to account for him just beating him with his hands. And Benton, it made sense from the beginning. It was the worst kept secret that
Oh yeah.
that he was going to Pittsburgh. Everyone knew it. But Benton, I mean, personally, I want to see him at 3 technique going
Mhm.
forward. I'm fine with him playing as the nose as long as he gets more snaps on the other side. Like, that was something that just frustrated me. It felt like his snaps kept going down and they didn't want to do anything about it.
Yeah, I think that's a classic Pittsburgh approach to a rookie for almost no reason whatsoever. Some guys are like, "Oh, I'm glad I never hit the rookie wall," and some guys are like, "I would never hit the rookie wall, so put me out there. Who cares?" I That's very interesting to say because I think that could push some noise and say, "Hey, maybe Larry O is worth $13 million. Maybe you save $9 million. I think it's $9.75 million if you get rid of him after June 1st. If things work out, if the draft goes their way, that could be very, very interesting. I never thought about it. Like, I thought he was bouncing over to What would a defensive tackle in the numbers system be?
I mean, Cam Hayward's like a 3 technique, 5 technique type guy.
I was gonna
That's
say,
where he goes. But here's the thing: Hayward plays nose at times. He can do that. He's that guy who can play all over. Keanu Benton's that guy who can play all over. So they have potential Cam Hayward replacement. They just, again, they're still trying to replace Stephon Tuitt.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's
Well, that's Larry O, but it's not Larry O because Stephon Tuitt was Stephon Tuitt, and yeah, they're still struggling with that one. All right, before we head out of here, I got a good one for you. You're drafting for the Pittsburgh Steelers tomorrow. This is their team. Who's your guy outside of Jackson Powers Johnson? Let's toss him out the window because he would be your guy.
awesome.
Who's your guy that you're going, oh, the Steelers are drafting this dude? That's happening.
For the from the Senior Bowl, like
just from the Senior Bowl. And then I got another
Gosh.
one for you too.
I would say this one's hard, but I feel like Kyrie Jackson might be that guy that they would look at just because those long corners really appeal to them. If not, day 3, Max Melton. I think between those two guys would probably be my picks, honestly. There's a lot of ways you can go with this. There's been a lot of interest from Tomlin's side for a lot of these players, but as far as I'm concerned, JPJ looks like the guy that they're most interested in right now.
Yeah. Okay. So when it comes to Jackson, where does he? Because there's so many corners in the first round here.
Yeah.
Is he below a Kool-Aid McKinstry? Is he above a Kool-Aid? Where does he fall into that? What Alabama corner? When does he go? Like, is he the second, the third corner out of Bama?
I would say with Kyrie Jackson right now, he's looking behind Kool-Aid McKinstry, Nate Wiggins, Quinyon Mitchell, all those Alabama corners.
I was gonna say there's like 4 of them, isn't there? Isn't there 4 Alabama corners like right in the first round that are expected to go right in the first round?
There's at least 2. I don't think there's
Unreal.
4 from what I remember, unless I am absolutely just not remembering off the top of my head. But I'm pretty sure it's only 2.
But this is a guy that you could see right after that. Do you see them?
I could see him being in that tier of day 2 guys, potentially like a Julius Brents. Like, he gets potential round 1 buzz, but after the combine with the way he runs and the way he tests, but then he ends up settling into day 2 because he's not quite the finished product. He doesn't quite have the experience, but he's that guy you want to mold into being that type of player.
Okay. I'm a big fan of that one. All right. And then your biggest sleeper for the Pittsburgh Steelers here. This is a good one.
Biggest sleeper.
You just spent 3 days scouting guys, 3 days staring at Mike Tomlin, watching him yell all the time. Jackson Powers Johnson isn't a sleeper, so
no, he's not. I'm gonna say biggest sleeper Ricky Pearsall, just because Pearsall is the type of guy that you might not think they want to go receiver that early, but Pearsall fits their ability as a slot wide receiver, and he can block, and he's got great hands to be able to adjust to those misplaced passes.
And he's a white guy. The Steelers love their white wide receivers, man. They love them. The fact that they haven't had a Ryan Switzer in like 2 years is shocking to me. Shocking.
All right.
It's true. It's true. It's beyond true, dude. They love their Ryan Switzers. They love their Matthew Sextons. They haven't had one in a while. They haven't. Is he short?
No, he's like 6'1", like 199 pounds. Like he's almost 200. He's not really in that mold. He's more like
I was gonna say he might not fit the mold. He might not be the guy.
I mean, if you want to go into the mold of that, Lad McConkey would make sense. I would assume because he's 5'10", like 184. But
yeah, he's gonna be too high for them though. He's gonna be too high for them.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so Ricky's a dude. What round's he going in? I'm looking at him right now. Yeah.
Say about day 2, between round 2 and 3, he could potentially go 4. I don't think that's where he should go, but he might only run in like the 4.5s or so. So maybe that puts him down compared to some of those guys in this class. There's definitely something to work with there. It's I like what I've seen out of him. I would be very not against the pick if they decided to go in that direction,
Yeah.
because I think you just take good players. You don't try to overthink it.
And with that, that's the way to end right there. I agree with that. I think the Steelers could use a guy like that. A
I do.
blocker with hands. We talked about this yesterday. Right now, your only option is Miles Boykin. I mean, George Pickens is great at blocking when he chooses to block. Deontay
Yes.
Johnson isn't bad either when he chooses to block. The problem is that you don't have that. You don't have that guy. That was the Allen Robinson. That's the Miles Boykin. But you need somebody who's a bit more offensive threatening than Miles Boykin to put out there. And I don't think Allen Robinson's coming back to the Pittsburgh Steelers unless he's looking to take a significant pay cut coming back through free agency. And that almost never happens in the NFL. So I could see that. I could see that one happening. I'd be all about that. I like a sleeper wide receiver more than like a top tier wide receiver. I think that's where the Pittsburgh Steelers should look, is guys later in the rounds to fit a mold and also, not waste a high draft pick on a guy that's gonna, you don't want another George. I mean, you do, but you don't want to waste a pick shooting for a George Pickens. You're shooting for a number 3.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what. There was a guy I was very interested in this week that didn't end up making the trip. It was Jordan Whittington, the receiver from Texas. He is their wide receiver 3. You can watch his tape. He'll be a guy who's constantly hustling. There was a play against TCU. Quinn Ewers throws like an arm punt, gets intercepted. Whittington tries to tackle the corner, misses him. What happens? Corner's still running. And then who's that right behind him? It's Whittington hauling his ass off, and he forces a fumble. Texas gets the ball back. They're able to win that game. He's making the big blocks. He's gone through some ACL, he's gone through some injuries in his career. He's really persevered. He's like so well liked in that locker room. That's the type of glue guy I would like to see. It's just he wasn't down here, and it was such a bummer because I thought he fit them like a freaking glove.
They replaced him with Glover. Actually, that's exactly what they did there. That's just how it is. All right. With that, we're closing out. One hell of a week down at the Senior Bowl. I hope you enjoyed it, my friend. You got any last night plans down in Mobile?
I'm still quite thinking it through. Potentially could go out one more time, talk ball with just a few more people. But also, nice. I'm just gonna be watching Senior Bowl practice film. That's what I gotta do. It's what I wanna. I wanna go watch through the tape. Just get it all done. Look through it. See what I missed. Because here's the thing: when you're here, you're looking through all the drills. They're going on one side. They're going on the other. You're trying to look back and forth, and you gotta balance that whole thing. So going back through the tape is the most important. You'll see my final takeaways from me probably sometime this weekend.
Beautiful.
I'll write those up. Definitely expect some good content from me.
Beautiful. Well, I hope you enjoyed. I hope everybody enjoyed jumping on here the last 3 days. Brought you as much as we could with some boots on the ground and our boy Nick Martin. With that said, make sure to go check out Nick Martin's Twitter because he's got all the inside, everything that you've missed throughout the Senior Bowl at the Mick Narton. Yeah, you'll remember that because it's the greatest Twitter name possibly of all time. We're heading out of here. Thank you guys so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work from allsteelers.com. Normal podcast back tomorrow. Nick's takeaways coming out tomorrow. More coming out over the weekend. Enjoy another beautiful weekend in the Berg. Peace.